did not introduce myself outside before, and I apologize for that. But Nyawe Skano Swagwego, Onondawaga Nia, Titoyo ni Gyaso, Agatayo ni. So my name is Ansley Jemison. My Ongwehui name is Titoyo. It means he just entered or he just came. And I'm originally from the Allegheny Territory, Ohio, which is probably about an hour and a half southwest of here. And I grew up down there in the Steenberg, Cold Springs area. Grew up going to the Longhouse at Joe Negano at Cold Springs. And then later on, my father was asked to be a faith keeper within the community at Ganodagan, and I started to attend more traditional ceremonies and things like that at the Ganodagan Longhouse. And I still get to go back and forth, which is very rewarding, and I'm grateful for that. It's always great to come home and spend time with people and celebrate our ceremonies. And everything that we do is sort of an cyclical thing. All of our ceremonies are based around the moon calendar and things like that, the lunar calendar. And so right now we're kind of in a tween sort of phase where we're waiting for the harvest to kind of happen. So probably green corn will probably be one of the things that'll be coming up next. We do have a lot of folks that are around here that are very familiar with our culture that can share more of that with you. You know, obviously if you ask and you approach, you trade tobacco for stories. Hey. But, you know, you want to do it respectfully and you want to ask each other. But this is a time for all of us to kind of come together and make sure that we're asking questions, checking in on each other, making sure that we're finding out more, you know, because pretty soon, come November, there's something that's happening that goes on that doesn't happen typically in our territories. Traditionally, it happens in our territories. But there's a man with a mop on the top of his head. He's about the color of a Cheeto, I think is what they say. And he's going to be potentially taking the helm again. And we're going to need as many allies as we can have, all of us together. So we're all going to have to really side up. And, you know, if you said something nasty to somebody's cousin at one point, or you snagged up with the wrong whoever it was, you know, apologize now. Because pretty soon we're going to have the Cheeto man back in charge again, possibly. And you want to make sure that we're all on the right side of each other and we're all appreciating one another for who we are and what we do. But just a little bit of a recap of what we were doing outside today. You know, we wanted to, again, talk about the fact that we have traditional protocols. We have ways of welcoming people back into our territories, properly welcoming people into our territories. And it's important that we enact these things. And we had a little bit of a challenge, you know, when we were kind of going back and forth. Is this something that we can share? Because part of that, you know, that process that we talked about was raising up of our leadership. When we have, you know, the loss of like a chief or a clan mother or something like that, we will have a condolence, and it's a large condolence and a small condolence that we'll have, and we'll kind of put somebody back in place. But there's a real process that kind of goes through all of that, and it's something that's reserved for our, you know, in our communities. It's reserved for stuff that we do within our longhouse setting. But along the way, the greeting got kind of couched within all of that. Those matters, you know, we talked about the three matters, the three bare words, but there's a longer, you know, version that happens when we raise up leadership and things like that. And some folks were kind of, well, maybe we shouldn't do that, you know, because that's reserved for when we're raising up leadership and things. But I had to kind of push back and I had to fight back a little bit and just say that, hey, this is something that we do to welcome people. And if we're not practicing it within our communities, and if we're not doing it and we're not showcasing and sharing with people, and there may be people within our own community who've never been a part of something like that before. So what an opportunity to be able to share that with all of you. And I thought that it would be important that we would do that. So I took a few arrows for you guys, but you know, I think it came out pretty well. I think Jamie did an amazing job, you know, in explaining what he was doing and why he was doing that. And you know, it's a difficult thing, you know, because oftentimes within our communities, if we step outside and we stand up, and we have this sort of idea that, you know, no tree in the forest grows higher than the others, you know. So I jokingly and I tease Jamie, you know, about, you know, him being a national treasure and those types of things. And he's a very humble person, so I always have to kind of like probe him a little bit and just to kind of loosen him up a little bit. But I do call him like my young elder, because he's a leader to me. He teaches me a lot of things. He's shared a lot of things. And as mentioned, before, I do a podcast. It's called the Original People's Podcast. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. And it's podcasting through an Indigenous lens is kind of how I took that. And the idea was that I was going to find a whole bunch of cool Native people, Indigenous people, and just let them talk about all the cool stuff that they do. What is it that you do? What does it mean to be an Indigenous person in this world today? What does it mean to be, have that identity, to claim that identity? It's a difficult identity. It's hard, It's not easy. Sometimes you kind of feel like you're signed up for the losing team, but then all of a sudden you get to in a room like this and you're like, we ain't losing shit. We're back, baby. We're here, So the strength and beauty in all of you is what drives this thing. And I brought my podcast gear with me. I brought a mic and a camera. And so I may tap a few of you at times, and I might want to, sit down with you for a little bit. Maybe we can do like a quick little 20-minute, half-hour talk and have you be a part of it, because that would only be awesome and it would add to this event. But then also, it would also help other Indigenous people who are part of my audience understand and hear your voices, the culture, the texture, the context of who you all are. And it'd be amazing, and I oftentimes, encourage people when they introduce themselves, when they come onto the podcast, to do it in your language. That's the first thing, do it in your language. When you introduce yourself to somebody today, if you have a name that was given to you ceremonially, introduce yourself with that first, because that other name, the colonizer name, that's still part of the colonization project, right? So be proud of that. Be proud of the fact that the ones who had to suffer for you to have that name, they gave you that opportunity. They provided that for you. They sacrificed for you. What's funny is that here in the States, it was illegal for us to practice our ceremonial ways of life and things like that. And a lot of things went underground. It wasn't until 1978 where finally we were actually kind of granted full rights to, do some of the things that we had been doing for millennia, right? So when I received my Ongwehoe name, my name in the longhouse, it was illegal. So I was actually breaking the law by getting my name, of all things. Can you imagine that? A little baby breaking the law already. So I was bad for a long time. But it's all right. I got to come out till Mama said knock you out. So just a couple housekeeping things. I just want to remind all of you that we do have some services. We do understand and we are aware of the fact that, some of the subjects that we're going to be discussing are going to be, emotional. They're going to be sensitive. They could be challenging at different times. And we just want to make sure that you are all aware of the fact that we do have resources here, within the building. We also have folks that are here that can lend a hand if you're, experiencing an emotional moment or something like that. And really kind of the way to do that, to signify that, is if you can spot somebody that has a yellow shirt on, if you can either give them, if you're doing okay, give them that thumbs up, right? That's a universal, I got it, I'm good, right? And if we're kind of not feeling so well, if we're kind of, kind of getting to a space, or we're not, things are kind of welling up a little bit and you need a break, somebody will come over, and discreetly kind of escort you to a space, where you can kind of unpack a little bit, if you need to just kind of get some space to either breathe or, take a moment for yourself, whatever else. And the universal sign for us is going to be a little bit of a thumbs down, okay? But you're not down and out, right? You're not done forever. It's just, I just need a little bit of a break, okay? So just let us know what that is, okay? Let us know how you're doing. We'll check in on each other and things like that, okay? Throughout the weekend, or throughout the time that we're here together, make sure we're checking in on each other, okay? Sit down with somebody. Be intentional about listening. Put your phone away, That thing's a tracking device anyways, right? Take some time. Spend some real time with each other. That was something that for me with the podcast, people are always like, oh, I want to be on your podcast, but I live in Manitoba, or I want to be on your podcast and I live in, wherever. And I really love it when I can just sit with a person, I don't script questions. I don't have anything written down. I know a little bit about the person. I might know the person's name, maybe know where they come from. Maybe I know that they're an artist of some sort. But I want to have like a genuine conversation with that person and actually get to know who they are, where they're from, and get a feel for the room, Like if I say something off color, if I say something that kind of goes one way, I don't want to perpetuate it. And you know how awkward and weird those Zoom calls are? I mean, half the time I'm sitting there in my underpants and just like a shirt on top and trying to act professional, right? But, We're all nasty, you know that. Come on. As long as you can get away with it. No. But anyways, so yeah, just a little housekeeping stuff, making sure that, if you're having any challenges or anything like that, or if you're difficulties experiencing that, we have a gentleman by the name of Peter who is actually here and he's available. There's a phone number that you can call. This is for after hours if there's at any time, if, you're experiencing some issues or some challenges and things like that. I don't know if it's going to do us any good if I read that off right now, just because it's like, how many of you guys have your phones out, and are you quick? I just told you to put your phone away. So, but understand that if you do have challenges or issues and things like that, there are people and resources on hand. And for those of you who pronounce the word resource as resources, there's resources here, and there's also resources here. So, what tripped me out was I was walking across the floor earlier. All of a sudden, I saw somebody walking across the floor, and man, they looked like somebody from the res, back home. And all of a sudden, they talking like this, and I was like, what in the world was that? I don't understand it. That guy just looked like me, and he started talking like this. Man, that's wild, But do you guys speak with like a res accent when you speak like British or whatever that is, that language you speak, like Australian? Like, is there like a res version of that? We got one, Listen to Tom Porter talk when that guy speaks. He's got that tough Mohawk accent when he talks, but it's still pretty charming the way he says things. It's nice. It's comforting. I appreciate that man right there. Mr. Tom Porter, when he gets up here and talks, talk about national treasure. He's amazing. He's an amazing person, an amazing man. He's an amazing elder, an amazing teacher. I do also want to acknowledge something as well, that we have some of our leadership here. We have both, elective counselors in here, but we also have some of our hereditary titles here. I know that we have the Bear clan mother here that's present with us, and so we're fortunate to have some of these leadership titles here with us, and we're thankful for your leadership and what you do in the communities and who you are and what you represent for us. So we're hanging on to that stuff. One of the things that we're very proud of in terms of the Six Nations, the Haudenosaunee people, is that we're one of the last nations, one of the last groups of people throughout all of Turtle Island that still maintains our hereditary chief and clan mother system. A lot of us also have a lot of elective systems and things like that. So we're still hanging tight. We still have that traditional leadership that's in place, and it's important to maintain those things. Equally as important it is to have our language, our culture, our dances, and things like that. So we're very fortunate to have those things still in place now. So there are going to be some moments throughout the rest of the day as well that we will let you know when it is appropriate to videotape and take pictures and things like that. And there will be times that we're going to ask you to maybe turn that stuff down for a minute. Be present, be in the moment, okay? No selfies, we'll do some selfies at some point. There's a really cool waterfall out here, if you ever heard, I don't know, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Go get a selfie with that thing. While you're here with people, be present, hang out, enjoy each other's company.